What you saw, heard, and experienced in your past formed a belief system.
When I attended counseling with you, it helped me to know like you are an anxious person, and it's not because that's you, your identity, but there's something that's making you anxious, so let's address that.
What it is that's doing it. I love what you said, you don't make anxiety your identity. It is something you might be experiencing, but it's not your identity. Hi, I'm Tina Konkin, and I'm sitting here with Sandy, and she goes back to about 2017, 16, 17? Yeah, it's been a bit. Sandy came through one of my intensive weekends, and I'll never forget it because she was kind of just very shy, but she wanted to experience it. She'd heard about it through her sister, and she really wanted to experience it. But from her own words, I'm going to let you, Sandy, share a little bit of what that experience meant for you. Because though I know your family past, of course I learned a lot of that through the workshop, but because I know your family past, I would have thought you were a fan of counseling and knowing that things that, you didn't grow up in a healthy environment, and it was hard, with siblings and parents. For me, I had my kids in counseling, because we did move a lot and stuff like that. So there was reasons for counseling, but from your experience, start there. You came because it was recommended to you by your sister who you trusted.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been something you would have chosen to do.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been something I would have chosen to do.
Right.
I think because my idea of counseling has always been someone is going to tell me how wrong I am and what's wrong, and then just judge me.
And what was wrong with you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I attended counseling with you, it opened up my eyes that actually counseling is about before you go forward, you need to look back. And I think there's this concept also that people are scared to do counseling because it's the judgment part, and it's painful, but it's more so about we're addressing not your bad habits, what you're doing, we're addressing what's actually harming you. And so going through counseling with you would help me to know, oh, you are an anxious person, and it's not because that's you, your identity, but there's something that's making you anxious, so let's address that.
What it is that's doing it. The root of the issues, right? You sound like me when I was young with young children, and it was suggested because of what I was going through with my own kids that I attend some counseling. And I remember the counselor saying to me, tell me a little bit about your past and tell me a little bit about your mom. And growing up as a Christian, I had these concepts of you don't go to the back, you don't look back, you move forward. And I had scriptures to give the counselor about that. But I think it was the same thing that you thought in your thought process, you're going to find something wrong with me. And I didn't mind that if it was present day. I didn't want to go back and, look at all those painful things that might have had something to do with how I was acting as a mom, as a wife, as a friend. I didn't think going back to the past, to me it was opening up a can of worms that didn't need to be opened up. It's in the past, you can't change it. And I think with counseling, you're right. A lot of people fear that you're going to be judged, that it's going to be you that's the problem. But I love what you said. You don't make anxiety your identity. Yeah. It is something you might be experiencing, but it's not your identity. I think you remember my words because I say them to everybody. What you saw, heard, and experienced in your past formed a belief system, right? Because you were a child, because you were an adolescent, and you were a victim as a child of whatever circumstances there are, and that's anybody listening. So, Sandy, share what made in our group intensive that we did, that moment that you had where you thought, oh, I'm broken, but it's not, I don't have to use it as an excuse, and it's not my fault, right? I have an explanation for the way that I am.
Yeah, I think it was going through my life story
Yes.
that really just was an eye-opening for me, because
You're talking about the storyboard, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, where you kind of map out the highs and the lows, starting from as early as you can.
Yeah, I think that's what like really opened up my eyes as, oh, this experience was actually really painful, because I kind of like had a moment of reflecting back to like my whole life and up until that moment, and seeing something where it's like, why is that actually really painful for me right now?
Right. Why am I still experiencing the pain when it happened way back?
Yeah. And compassion started coming out, because it helped me to see that, oh, there is an area actually in my past, in my history, that is impacting me right now.
I think what you're talking about is when we get to that part of our story where then once we've mapped it all out, we actually talk about connecting the dots and how your past affects decisions you're making today, or your past causes you anxiety when you're in a moment where you're re-experiencing those emotions. I always say this, and I think you'll remember this, Sandy, I say that things that are unresolved from our past still carry the emotional baggage. So if you got hurt at the age of 8, or let's say you were abandoned, or you were rejected, or you were told you weren't good enough, and that happened way back here, that happened in a moment in childhood, but you're still carrying the pain of that. So you're re-experiencing the childhood emotion. But now the compassion and love that you said that, because that's one of the things that I know people don't expect to find in my coaching. And that is that you need to have compassion for yourself. And it's hard to have compassion for ourselves in present day. But when you went back and looked at your story, the compassion you felt was for that little girl.
Yeah.
That little person that didn't have the power of decision. You couldn't decide your outcome. You couldn't decide where you were going to live today or tomorrow. That you were a victim to that. So I always say children are victims, but you're not now. And so once you found that compassion, what's the difference today?
I think I'm much like kinder to myself.
You don't beat yourself up?
I don't beat myself up. Naturally, people, when they want to send a message, that creates empathy. You think of children, you think of just like babies and things like that.
Yeah.
And so in a way it's like a great picture, because then it kind of helps me to have more compassion.
For others too.
For others too, yeah.
And I really see that, you understand that concept of heal the past so that you can really live today in freedom, not in anxiety. You're still going to have anxious thoughts, but we know what those are, and they're not your identity, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mental illness today, a lot of emotional heartaches and loneliness, and I look at all that and I think to myself, if only they could heal first, so that living today, I don't identify as my anxious self. I don't identify myself as lonely. I get lonely, but I'm not a lonely person. I don't have to be anymore. As a child, maybe I needed to be. I needed to remove myself from chaos. And so then that developed this deep loneliness because you were looking for safety. So when we examine our story, like Sandy's just been talking about, now it helps you make different decisions today. And I see that, from 2017 to now, you're still in my life, so I can really see the difference and how now you attend different groups to continue to improve. Because you see, when we heal the past, we can live in the present day free of judgment, free of judging ourselves and criticizing ourselves. Instead, we're more into growth and healing that. And then loving what the future holds. And I see you took those heal and just live and love. And every day is a new day that you get to. You've got my I get to right there. I get to experience coaching and counseling and growing, right? Any final things you want to say to anybody who's considering, opening themselves up to coaching?
Yeah.
Or even attending something,
Yeah. there comes a point where you're doing things on your own, but we were designed to lean on one another, and
So good.
relationships are the way that we heal. Individually, yes, but I think relationships are important, and having someone else. And so I would encourage others to really seek that in counseling. There are tools that you get. Like for me personally, one thing that was hard for me to manage was my thoughts and my emotions. And now after doing counseling and doing the work, I can now stand in a place where my thoughts and my emotions, and I'm an observer of them, but I don't take them right away.
Wow. Did you hear what she just said? She is now, they're still there and they still come periodically, right? Some of them come more often than others. And especially when you're in an emotional situation or when you're in a relationship with someone that triggers some things, they can come up. Whereas before, she would let those emotions and those thoughts control you from the inside. And now you're saying they're out here and you're observing them, you're acknowledging them, but you're saying, I don't have to operate in them.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so, I've never heard it said like that. Now I observe them.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's so good, because that's a tool. When you're able to put the problem, I've always said put the problem on the outside and fight the problem. But the way you just said it, those inner thoughts that are toxic, that want to beat you down, right? It's not that they never happen again, but now you're in control of them instead of them in control of you. That was so good, Sandy. That was really good. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And guys, if you want to join us, if you want to be part of our coaching programs and some of the group stuff we do, or if, anything we can help you with, reach out.